Okay, so let's finish off the lecture by looking at the Home Hub. The ones that we've been working on, the Uni app, they demonstrate the ideas because we're dealing with quite small amounts of quite small numbers of attributes. So, a maximum of 4 attributes. The name, user ID, the job for a staff member, and the list of modules. But they kind of demonstrate the ideas of inheritance and encapsulation. For Home Hub, actually, this really starts to make a difference to the amount of code you have to write. So in the Home Hub, we've got, I don't know if you remember it, but we have a light, or we have a light class which we use for lots of different types of light. And then we have the spotlight, which is dimmable. Okay, so we've got the spotlight has all the stuff that's in the light class, but it's also got methods to turn the light up and down because the light is dimmable. Okay, so the light has the attributes like on, the name, and it also stores the radio buttons to deal with the GUI, and it's got methods to switch on, switch off, do the status, and also set the widget. So the set widget is to do with the GUI, but the kind of key ones are switch on, switch off, and status. The spotlight has all that stuff as well: on, name, radio button, typesetting. On, name, and radio button, but it's also got things like the type of the type of thing that's controlled by the up and down. So, which is the brightness. It's got the setting for the brightness, which is what it's set to initially, which is I think 350 lumens or something, and it's got maximum value for the brightness, and it's got how much it increments by each time it's turned up. But it's also got methods for switching on, switching off status, and then it's got methods for turning it up, turning it down, changing the setting, printing the setting, set widgets. And if you look at those lists of functions, you'll notice some of them are in bold, and the ones in bold are the ones that are the same for both types of class. So for both of them, we need to have our attributes to control whether it's on, what the name is, and whether it's got a radio button associated with it. And we also have methods to handle those things. So if we think about going back to the start of the lecture, the spotlight is a type of light because the spotlight is a more specific thing that inherits stuff from the more general thing. So if we want to do the code more simply, what we can do is we can use the dimmable light. I've called it a dimmable light now rather than a spotlight because actually we could have lots of different types of dimmable light. The dimmable light inherits from the light. So the light has this bunch of methods. I've left out all the details, but these are the methods that are available in the light class. And then the dimmable light has all those methods because it inherits from the light. And so switch on, switch off, and status are inherited by the dimmable light, but it's also got methods to turn it up, down, change the setting, and print the setting. Okay, so from the GUI code, we see very little difference. It just looks like this, but we now don't need to duplicate all that code in the dimmable light or what was the spotlight class. This code is now inheriting from this code. And in fact, in that particular example, let's find it. I put all the lights in the same file. So sometimes it's common, it's particularly in other programming languages, to put each class in a separate file. You can, and we could have done this with the Uni app, put them all in one file. And in this case, I've got them all in one file. So the light class is at the top here. I can minimize that. And then I've got the dimmable light class underneath that with a bunch of methods. Okay, so sometimes it depends how your code is organized and how much code there is, but sometimes it makes sense to put multiple classes, especially if they inherit from each other in a single file. Okay, so I don't want to go into any more details, really. That if you look at that example, you'll see actually we've saved an awful lot of code. So in this example, you can see I've got, 67 lines of code in total for my lights. If I go back to a previous one, so from the last lecture, the light class has 26 and the spotlight has 53. So that's, what's that? 79. So I've saved quite a few lines of code because I can inherit all this stuff, the switch on, switch off, from the spotlight inherits that from the light class. Okay, so what have we seen today? We've seen the idea of inheritance. Now, some of the details I think are quite advanced, and particularly on the idea of encapsulation and even overriding, actually. But I think the important thing is to get the idea of the terminology and what it's trying to do. So we have this idea of things that are specific that inherit stuff from things that are general. Just as we classify things in real life, like a spaniel is a type of dog, which is a type of mammal, which is a type of animal. We have classes that inherit from this class. Student class is a type of user, which is a type of person. Okay, and notice the terminology we say inherits from. So the class that inherits from another one, the class that inherits from is the child or the subclass, and the class that is inherited from is the parent or superclass. We've also seen that this universal modeling language actually can be very helpful when you're trying to understand what's going on in your classes. If you've got a lot of classes to deal with, it's definitely worth looking at the UML diagram of those classes, because it'll help you to understand what the code is doing. We've seen how to do it in Python, and how we define it. It's actually very straightforward, just by putting the name of the parent class in brackets. And then we've looked at a number of methods that show how to implement that. And hopefully it kind of makes sense, certainly as a concept, even if some of the code looks a bit complicated. Okay, I'm going to finish there, and then yes, next week we'll talk about polymorphism, which is taking this a little bit further.